The council meeting on the 7th of August. Begin with a prayer. God of our fathers, in whom we trust and by whose guidance and grace this nation was born.
E tia tu tua ka roha nā tua mā pono. No tu aroha e whānau mai I a Aotearoa.
Bless these council of heart and give all things needed for their faithful discharge of their responsibilities.
Whakapainga mai mātou ko nā mai whakatiki. Ho mai ki mātou mā me pai. Kia a tia arataki a tau mātou mahi. Nā mahi e hapi ake e tia ka hopuri.
Give to each good health and good judgment for the decisions to be made, wisdom beyond our own, and a clear understanding so that we may promote the glory and welfare of all in the city.
Ho mai ke tine ho mātou tia oronga pai, mā tia fō kara pai hoki, ki whakatau ai tikana nā mātura tūtaka fō ti mātura tanga. Kia a ti ku tu korea me te orongāranga o tia kura tu roto a whakatuki.
Through Jesus Christ our Lord, Amen.
Kua hu kraitia tau mātu ki Ameni.
Thank you. Steve, make sure that everyone has their mobiles turned off. And we know where the toilets are, out here to the right. And the fire exit, if we need to go out, we go out here to our right and down the stairs. You can see the stairs there and assemble out in the green paddock out there. And the event of an earthquake, drop cover hold. And if you need to follow instructions, we follow the instructions from the man on my right here. I see you. And if you require assistance, let us know. Okay, before we begin, just some of the things that over the last, since the last meeting, celebrated again on 28th of June, Makariki, and during the early part of July, I was a panel member for the Regional Land Transport Plan, their midterm review. We had on the 11th of July, the combined Wellington Airport Regional Community Awards over at Civic Centre, again with the volunteers, celebrating the volunteers of our community. 21st of July, I attended at Timberley Community House, the Matariki celebrations. And just the last week, we had a citizenship for another 70 candidates. Welcome.
Hi.
And over here with 18 different countries. And during the week, last week, I met with the ambassador from Chile, with new Pecorati, and also on last Friday, the RCE and I attended the opening of Service Foods, which is down in the Alpha Alexander Road, and they were very thankful for the help that council had given them, and they were started off about to expand to 100 people, employees. They've already well over that, and now looking to begin stage 2 already. And they only had the opening on, so our economic stimulus package was the reason they're here. So they really are great. So it was great. And there was a big turnout they had people from all over the country here for that opening. So well done. Okay, we have no apologies. And before we go to the public section, we need to just so that we have a deferred decision. We talked about the representation arrangements for the October 2025 elections. And whilst that item was not included in the 7th of August council for our agenda, it wasn't available when the agenda was published. The Amendment Act was enacted on the 31st of July. And whilst we need to make a decision because of legislative requirements by the 6th of September 2024. So we'll deal with that item after the public forum. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Griffiths, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. So it's recommended that council address section 46A 7 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act and resolve to deal with this report despite it not being on the agenda because of the urgency. Do we have a mover? Moved by councillor Bentley, seconded by councillor Carey. All those in favour say aye. The contrary, no. It's been carried. Go to item 2, which is the declarations of interest. And if we have any changes, can you please let governance know? We now move to public forum, and we have one speaker. Welcome.
Kia ora tātou. I just want to speak on 2 items on the agenda in the deferred decision. So the item on the agenda number 4 around Cottage and the Blockhouse. Well done on that. There's certainly, I'm here in support of the volunteers. Great work, but do remember to take care of them and their passion for what they do for our history in Upper Hutt. On item number 5, the minutes, I noticed that the minutes, of course, that's one of those things that I've talked about for several years, even around the council table. There doesn't seem to have been any deliberation on the long-term plan, and I remember watching the virtues and thinking that there wasn't really any deliberation. So my carefulness to you when I addressed you all around the long-term plan was the fact that there are people giving you some really good ideas in the submissions that haven't been discussed or debated. And you can kind of see why the general public thinks that the decisions have been made in the workshop or workshops, plural, when there haven't been deliberations. And when you look at the minutes, it's clear that there haven't been. So unless there have been and the minutes haven't shown them, there are quite a few good ideas in those submissions that might have been considered yes, considered not, but not ever been any discussion on some ways you might have been able to reduce the rates. So I just wanted to express my concern around the minutes, and one day we might get some that might share the discussions that have actually been had. The other one is the vote that you're having today, your deferred decision. Now, I remember I spoke last week about that. Interestingly, there's been a few conversations with me after that, and I just wanted to point out some things. You have now 2 options, one to rescind the decision that you made in November, and the other is to keep it and go out to referendum at the next election. And I would like you to consider that option. And the reason is because when people are saying that this is not a democratic way to do it, what is the other option then? So you've got a general ward. The representation review is 1 general ward and 1 Māori ward. What is the option? The alternative to that, is that appointing Māori or iwi members to the committees and therefore having speaking rights but not voting rights? And they certainly don't have any around the council table. Is that a democratic decision? Because it's far more democratic to have a Māori ward than it is to have them appointed. I don't have a problem myself personally with appointing them to committees. However, if the democracy is the problem here, then that is not democratic. Democracy is Māori having their own ward, own people to vote for, and their own voice around the table. You don't have that when you have them appointed to committees and then not on council. You don't, because, as you know, the minutes can come back to council and be relitigated, and they can be relitigated by all of the people that weren't at those committees. So just remember that. It's far more democratic to do it this way, and it's far more democratic, interestingly, to have a referendum in 2025 to see what the community really think. Because if you take the study that you did on this, most of the people that weren't in favour of Māori ward were saying it in racist ways. And I think that you have to really understand that we do have a problem with racism in Upper Hutt, and not listening when people are accusing you of not listening to the community around this Māori ward thing. Oh yeah, most of the community said this. Well, most of the community said they wanted ratepayer funded recycling as well. And the council, and I was on that council, made a collective decision not to do that. So, you know, you have done it before, and that's what I'm saying. This is a far more democratic way to do it, a referendum in 2025, and have a Māori ward in the meantime. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, Councillor Slot.
Hi. Thank you for coming along and speaking, Angela. So with regard to your point on point 4, Are you saying that you agree with the recommendations as are written in the paper? That we talk to those that engage with Golders Cottage and Blockhouse and look to come to some agreement?
Absolutely.
And with that, so you're agreeing that?
You have to consult with them. You have to work with them. They've been doing this for year in and year out for a long time. They've, because they haven't done might not have done a cracker job according to whoever, doesn't mean you can't rule them out of the discussions.
So you're just saying you approve of the recommendations in front of us. That's really what it is. The next, what was the mumble?
I can't approve any recommendations.
No, but you're giving the support of the recommendations.
Yeah, we need to look after those two taonga.
So with regard to the representation that we're going to go out, or that we're going to discuss further, what has happened with mana whenua in some areas is that they have been appointed to council and they have actually been given voting rights. So you wouldn't be opposed to that. You would still want them to be an elected person as an elected councillor.
No, my point is if they have voting rights, I don't have an issue with that. My point is that democratic when they're not elected?
Well,
the question is democracy.
Yeah.
And if it's not democratic to have a general ward and a Māori ward, how can it then be democratic to appoint people? So they're not elected by anybody. Whereas in a ward system, they're elected by the community, whoever that community might be.
So I suppose my question back to you, if I can, Your Worship, is it important for mana whenua to be the voice that is represented, or any Māori to be the voice around the table, is the point that I was trying to make.
Oh, okay, if that's the point that you're going to make, then that's the Māori board represents all Māori, and I would think that it would be up to the iwi as to who, I know that we have 3 iwi with interests in it. So I don't know how they might work that out, and it's voted, as I understand it, the same as in the general election. So you need to be on the Māori roll to vote in the Māori ward. So there is likely, as it happens in the general election, there are Māori who are not on the Māori roll who vote in the other. I mean, I can't speak for people and how they vote, but that iwi would. I mean, the iwi are certainly lobbying other councils in the area for representation. So. I can't imagine I'm not lobbying here.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Councillor Aldrich?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you if you're aware that by having a Māori ward, it means that everyone on the Māori electoral roll will only have 1 vote for that Māori ward, and they won't be voting for the remaining 9 councillors at all.
That's right, and that's the point that had been pointed out to me, that that's undemocratic. However, appointing people to...
Well, we won't be changing that. That's legislation.
I just wondered what you thought of that, whether it's an improvement or...
Well, I think having a Māori voice around the table is an improvement.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We now move to the deferred decision for council, the representation arrangements for October 2025 election. We have the report from the Acting Director of Strategy, Partnerships and Growth. Director, any updates that you'd like to add?
Thank you through you, Your Worship. No particular updates. Just a comment, firstly, to welcome Gavin Beattie, who's joined us again today as an external advisor to the meeting. And with this report, just noting that we have written of it replacing the report provided to the 30th of July meeting, in the interest of simplicity and trying to give you one report with all the information in it to consider. In particular, under the section titled Discussion and Options, we've laid out 3 parts. The first focuses on the new legislation and outlines what's required and provisions relating to that. Following that, that section is from paragraph 31 to 39. And then following that, the report goes into 2 sections titled Campaign Party, In each of those sections, it attempts to outline for you the options and the considerations that stem from that initial decision required by the decision regarding the Maori Board decision. So just noting that that's the first part that was presented, and then following on from that decision is parts A and B respectively. Happy to answer any questions and be clarified around how the report is structured or the information provided.
Okay, before you answer, if there's any questions, what we'll do is we'll work through it. We'll take the recommendations separately, then at the end, recommendation 6, we'll whether either or for the two, but we'll do that. So is there any questions for the director? Okay, so yes, councillor Holders.
Your worship, through you. I'm wondering if I can actually direct my question to Gavin, if that's all right.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the question that Councillor Ultra raised and Angela spoke to about it being undemocratic to have a Māori ward because of the fact that people can only vote in the one role or the other. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the democratic nature of that.
Your worship, councillors, as the mayor said, that is the nature of the legislation, that it's the formula in the end. The council has gone through the option of having multiple general wards to balance it more in that one councillor from Māori ward and maybe 2 or 3 from general wards would at least balance it up a little bit more. But at the moment, that is the nature of the legislation. There's no the other option which the council did consider was the mixed model, where you have X number of Māori wards, general wards, and councillors at large, and then councillors, the electors from the Māori ward could vote for the at-large electors as well. So it's a balancing act of those various scenarios. They've all got pros and cons. There isn't a simple answer, but that is the nature of the legislation at the moment. And the one other point I would point out that people talk about the Māori ward vis-a-vis the general ward. Nationally, only about 52% of Māori are actually registered on the Māori roll. So there are a lot of Māori actually registered on the general roll. And so it isn't purely a Māori, non-Māori issue as well. But the legislation is what it is. And as the mayor said, we can't change the legislation. And you have to balance those factors up. But in the end, it's not an ideal situation necessarily, but those are the factors to consider.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Swallows.
Your worship, and just to follow on to what Gavin has said, I was the only elected member that went down to Waifatu when we were talking about this piece of legislation that was introduced, and it was a shared conversation between. Did you want to say something, Councillor?
Yeah, point of order. Is this a question or a comment or what?
It's a comment that is referring to the question that's just been put there about it being undemocratic, because the Māori said down there, Waifatu, that it was an undemocratic process and they didn't support it.
You're asking a question.
No, well, no, I'm just supporting the question that Emma put to the table. So if you want me to then leave it until we speak, I'm happy to do that.
Any other questions for you? Councillor Kerry.
So I guess the question I had following on is the pros and cons. Is it undemocratic or it's just the legislation? It's just on that, right?
Well, I think that's not fair.
Is the legislation undemocratic?
Well, that's not. I don't think that's Gavin's position. It's not fair.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
Legislation is the legislation.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions? So before we move to the either or part, I'm happy to move that council receives the report of deferred decisions, representation arrangements. Happy to move it. Do we have a second? Councillor Holderness? All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no, it's been carried. And so now before us we need to either decide whether they either all either to establish one or more Maori wards for the 2020 triennial election, or does council wish to rescind as the legislation was passed last week and proceed with our representation review as outlined? So happy for that. Is there any discussion? Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, thank you, your worship.
Sorry. Next, followed by Councillor Newell.
I'd like to move motion to rescind the Maori ward. The reasons being is that it was first considered before a referendum was there. The cost is at least $35,000. The public submissions.
We don't have written speeches.
Yeah, there's not a
These are just the public submission was against the Maori ward being there. So by rescinding it, we'll stop division and being able to get on with more prudent use of our money.
Councillor Newell.
Your Worship, in the 8 terms on council, I don't think I've seen something that's been so contentious. And while I think that we all probably think that we are doing the best, nevertheless, this is going to cause a wedge between us in terms of what each of us thinks is the best. And from my perspective, what this will do is prevent some of us from being able to represent a part of the community, which is the community at large, not the community of wards, not separated by geography, not separated by race, but actually we can all speak for all parts. And I, Your Worship, would be absolutely devastated if I could not speak for the people that I have loved and respected, and to be told that, oh no, you don't represent those people. One person at the table is going to have to represent the entirety of Maori interests. And surely there is more than just one Maori interest. Like any population, there is going to be multiple interests in a group. And to ask one person to do that surely is a poisoned chalice for that one person. The rest of us, yep, we can appeal to the entire public of Upper Hutt, except for the Maori community. And that just seems totally undemocratic, unfair on all of us. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. Are we speaking to a motion? Because no motion has been being put here.
Yeah.
We haven't had a second.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a second.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Carey.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I guess there's a number of things here that I think I'd like to address. Firstly, is that nothing has actually materially changed since the last decision we made. There's a whim of political, view from central government that puts us back on the table for a decision. Fundamentally, no other stats have changed. Māori are still overrepresented in prison, overrepresented in social housing and poverty. The system itself sets up to be racist inherently, if that is the stats. And the stats are a matter of fact. So a system that actually puts people in that place is the racist piece. Giving voice to people is not divisive if you're empowering them. That would be the first point I would make. The second is, as a council, collectively, we're always vocal about political interference on decisions that we want to make locally. Three Waters,
What's the first?
this having to reaffirm our position as a council, that, we rue that. We're active and we're vocal against political interference. And this comes as a whim. Who knows what will change in the future? There's also an option for a democratic process in here, right? This goes to a referendum. So actually the community still get a decision. Regardless, if we put this on the table, we still put that choice in their hands. And I suppose the last thing I would make, perhaps cynically, but in the light that nothing has changed, we understood one person in Māori ward would be voted in, and the people could vote for one, and a Māori electorate could vote for one councillor. So if we're only now coming to grips with that as a problem, then we either didn't read the papers the first time or we didn't understand them, and I don't know which is worse.
Any other comments? Councillor Swales?
Your Worship, now that I'm able to probably make this comment, like I said, I went down to Waikato Marae where we had this conversation, right? And they were against this piece of legislation. And then when you look at those that have an interest, mana whenua that have an interest, and you think of what's happened to our courthouse when it was no longer fit for purpose, it was given to Ngāti Toa, and they had the first right of refusal, and they have said that they want it. When we went over to Ngāti Toa and we had a meeting with their elders and their board of trustees, they didn't want a Maori ward. What they wanted was the ability to have a voice at the committees that were there, right? And those are the things where a lot of people say that they've spoken with mana whenua, then they weren't in the forums that where the policy people were or the elected members were. So I find it really interesting. And as my colleague has said, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed for me. I mean, do I not count? I'm Māori, or do you not see that? Do I have to be dark brown for you to see that I'm Māori and I'm a Māori voice around this table and that I'm not counted as a voice for those people? I am a voice here for them and everybody in this community. And I don't believe that when we had the survey that was taken back in November, the 1st of November 2023, where we had 56 respondents, 47 people saying they wanted the establishment of Māori wards, and then we had 61 respondents and 52% saying they didn't want to establish Māori wards. As someone, a member of the public, has said, this council has been known to go against what our community wants. But this is an interesting and a divisive decision that I think we need to rescind it and we need to let the community know. I mean, 61 and 56 voices from our community telling us what they want is not a good representation of the voice of our community. So I have not changed, as my colleague said, nothing has changed for me that I will be voting to rescind this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Carson?
Thank you. I got a quote from the 15th of November leader, if I may, Your Worship. And it's interesting to read that the Waiwatu Marae-based Kara Pukatapu dentist said, Mana whānau see wards as a positive step towards increasing Maori participation in decision making. Upper Hutt should be congratulated for its decision, but he noted that it did not absolve the council from its wider responsibility to recognise the Treaty of Waitangi and to consult with mana whenua. So that sort of conflicts what my fellow councillor Swales has just said.
No.
And then interesting enough, that my fellow councillor Tracy Alcher was quoted as saying, she said she voted for the ward after the majority of people she spoke to, they were in favour. That's interesting. So, you know, we've got some conflicting statements here. And I just see yesterday the Kapiti District Council has voted to reaffirm the establishment of wards. And they said that reaffirming the decision to establish a Maori ward today supports the position of the council's partners, and we're sure Maori have a greater access to decision making at a local level. It also supports the position of Local Government New Zealand, who have just joined again, who have stated that reversing the council's ability to decide on Maori wards without polls is an overreach by central government. So, that states some things. And my learned councillor here is saying that we should rescind the Maori ward because it's going to cost us $34,000 to have a poll. Is that a good reason to make a decision to rescind a Maori ward based on cost? I don't think so. That is not part of democracy. And so, in fact, the actual democratic thing is to put it to a vote in terms of a poll. I would think that is democratic. Now, those submissions that we heard in November, when the council met in November, 61 or whatever it was, those people, 70% of those were racialist comments. And the worst one was that don't we need Maori wards because sooner or later, because of all the intermarrying, there won't be any Maoris left in New Zealand. That was the example of the racist comments that were in the submissions that we had. And so you should take all those submissions, 70% of them, I counted, were raceless. So, no, I'm not saying stop voting. What I'm saying is, and you can't comment on what I've got the floor, thank you, councillor. What I'm saying is that the democratic thing is, like democracy, is a poll, a referendum on this subject. Not you people around the council making a decision. It is now in the position where we can have a poll on the decision that was made in the beginning of November. And that's what I'm voting for. I'm voting for to retain the Maori ward. Now, some of you might say, oh, our district councils have voted to rescind it. Yes, Concord did. But there was a hell of a battle at that meeting by Maori people at that meeting. If you read the news report of that meeting, there was a hell of a battle for Maoris. They wanted the retaining of that Maori ward. And we should do the same. We should keep it. Put it through the vote.
Okay, any further comments or questions?
Can I have a
Councillor New, yep.
Yep. What I want to explain to Councillor Carson is that many of the councils that already have or are having a Maori ward have wards across a geographical breakdown of wards. We only have the one. And so it's 1 to 9. Whereas in most of these other councils, they have already got a ward system. So it is balancing out for them to have a Maori ward because the numbers balance out. But in our case, the numbers are not going to balance out. And let's face it, if we have a referendum, what is the chance that the number of Maori who may want a ward, a Maori ward, what's the chance that they are going to outnumber the European voters, perhaps, and others who have another vote? I don't get how this splits up and has a fairer representation because of the population numbers.
Councillor Holderness and then Deputy Mayor Swales.
Oh, I thought that was my right of reply.
Yes.
It's all right.
You're allowed to.
I'm allowing it debate to carry on.
Thank you. I'll reply then.
I will still be voting to affirm the resolution that we already made. For many of the reasons that Councillor Kerry had said, I don't think that we want interference in central government and something that we've already decided for us. Councillor Newell's point, just to your point about not being able to represent everyone. Not all Māori, as Gavin has told us, are on the Māori roll. There will still be many Māori who you would be representing as part of that. It is more inclusive to be able to allow Māori a choice as to who they want representing them. Do they want to be on the general roll and have the opportunity to vote for all of us? Or do they want to be able to vote for Māori representation in the way that they want to do it? So I see it as being more inclusive, and I don't think we should preempt who votes and how they do it. I think we should put it to the referendum, as Councillor Carson has said, and let people choose. Let people have that choice for themselves. The legislation is not necessarily set up to be as democratic as it could be, so let's give people the options where we can. To Deputy Mayor Swales' point, that she is one of a Māori around the table, absolutely. But there's no guarantee that that will still be the case. We didn't vote for STV. We didn't vote for a more democratic way of representation. We voted for first past the post. And so on that basis, there may well be no Māori sitting around the table. I think we're right in saying that we don't really know what the community wants. We need to put it to the referendum. And in the meantime, we have voted. So let's stick with what we've got.
Okay, any further comments? Councillor Carson?
Councillor.
No.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. This is not about fairness of representation. It's nothing to do with fairness at all. It's to do with honouring Treaty Waitangi and recognising, in fact, that Māori have a right to be represented in any way we can. And this is one form of representation, that a tool that we have at our disposal to have a Māori ward, as well as electing Māori onto our committees and giving them the vote. That's good. But why not have both? I can't see the reason why we can't have both at all. It's not anything to do about fairness of representation or representing. It's to do with the Treaty of Waitangi and honouring its principles. It's got nothing to do about having an Asian or a whatever on around the committee and having boards for that. And as for having those councils that have married and different a number of wards, it doesn't really matter. You could argue, in fact, that it's not democratic to have just one ward for the upper half, because people in Tokyo Park or people in Birchpool or wherever in Silver Spring aren't being represented. So, you know, you can argue it both ways. And it doesn't make sense to argue whether or not it's fair in terms of representation. The argument it is, there's a tool given to honour Treaty of Waitangi in terms of representation around this table.
Any other comments? Okay, we do. Councillor Bentley?
Very divisive issue, this one, and it saddens me that it's become so, because it should be a positive discussion about empowering communities to be better represented around the table. This is one that I've contemplated long and hard about, and I can see both sides, I genuinely can, but I do think we did make the right decision back in November. I do think it should go to a poll and let the people decide how this should continue, and if they don't want it, chuck it out. We've only waited 3 years, but let's try something different. Bill Hammond points to me about the cost, rubs his fingers together. We're happy to spend 90,000 on a sculpture up at Harcourt Park. That is the cost of democracy to have a poll. We waste money left, right and centre, so don't get me started on that. The cost of democracy is never one to stop you having a vote, or nor should it be. So let's put it to a vote, let the people decide. The case can be put then, but why should we be the ones who determine the makeup around this table? Give it to the people.
Final comments, rather than putting it to the vote.
So I would like to then actually put something on the table, which is another recommendation. And going by the mood and the conversation that's taken around the table, we don't have to make a decision until the 6th of September, Your Worship, if I'm reading this right. That we have a policy committee meeting on the 4th of September. If it is the will of these people and my colleague around the table that they want to hear what the community want, we have a window where we can actually put that out there in the time and ask the community, do they want a Māori ward or not? And have a forthwith decision on the 4th of September at the policy committee meeting. So I would like to put a recommendation on the table that we actually go out to the community and ask the community, do they want a Māori ward? Do it on all of the platforms that we have and put it out there, and let's ask the community what their voice is on this issue. And then we've got a sphere of, do they want a Māori ward or not? So my recommendation is that we defer this, we go out for a public consultation, we bring it back at the policy committee meeting on the 4th of September, and we ask for a forthwith decision. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Newell?
Seconding it. Yeah.
Councillor Bentley, then Councillor.
Thank you. I can just see all sorts of problems with that. First of all, our consultations are, well, it's not a protected ballot. It's not secure. Many people, if they were doing online consultation, could have set up multiple accounts and, you know, bombard it with fake names and votes and stuff. We wouldn't get a good sample size. And if we want to do it properly, they have a ballot, a proper ballot that's verified by the Electoral Commission, not some ad hoc rush consultation that would have to throw money at anyway, which would be serving the cost. Might as well throw money at a proper electoral vote.
Thank you. No, okay. Councillor Carson.
I must be failing in my memory, but I thought we went out for, to the community, prior to the 1st of November decision on this matter, and we got those submissions that, Councillor Deputy Mayor Swales, mentioned in terms of numbers. And so I don't think anything's going to change. We've already done the process. We've already gone out. We found that 70% of those that voted, that didn't want a Maori ward were racialist anyway. So it's not going to be any different than in a month's time when we come to the policy committee and decide those, look at those submissions. I don't think they're going to be any different. But you're only going to get the same number. No matter how much publicity you're going to do, you're only going to get relatively the same number. All right? So it's not representative of those people who can vote in Upper Hutt at all. And that's what the advantage of the poll is. That is the true reflection of democracy, not going out and asking, because the response we'll get, most of those people coming back will be anti-establishing a Maori ward. So that is not giving a good reflection about how you make a decision at all, all right? So go with the poll. I reject this amendment.
Councillor Holdness.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillors Bentley and Carson. I think that it opens it up to, as Councillor Bentley said, having a whole heap of spam coming through around things like that. It also puts a whole heap of work on to be able to do it well in a short space of time. I think requires a lot of planning and things that we just don't have the resources for at the moment, especially given the what else the council has going on at the moment and council officers have going on at the moment. I think we should vote now as to whether or not we're going to affirm the resolution or not. And I don't see why we wouldn't give it a go from a Maori, to have a Māori ward for the 3 years, to then come to a referendum, because then at least people have got the options of comparison. We don't know what it looks like having a Māori ward at the moment. Let's do it for a triennium and see what happens.
Councillor Kerry.
Yeah, it was just a question on Deputy Mayor's recommendation around process. If we're doing consultation, that doesn't restrict it to Upper Hutt residents in the electorate, does it? It's consultation, so it could skew the input as well. Is that correct?
Possibly. Yeah. Correct.
Thank you, Richard. If we were to seek feedback, we would be able to request contact details, for example, and be able to potentially filter respondents being based in Upper Hutt, but that is not foolproof or verified in any way. We're just subject to whatever information is provided.
Okay, last comment, then we're going to go to the vote.
Okay, and sorry, after you, Glenn. Sorry, I won't comment.
Just a clarification point, really. So if we were to rescind the thing on the table today, that ends the ability to have a referendum in our election process, other than if we were to bring a new paper to bear. If we vote to keep it, then we get a referendum put into the following election, not this election.
Next election, 2025.
So can somebody point out whether or not, if we were to rescind it, is there a way of getting a referendum into the election still?
I suppose the system is percentage of the population. We have to ask for it, is it? That was the original. I don't know whether it still exists in the legislation. I'm not sure, but that was what it was, wasn't it? It was 5%
Yeah.
of the population. I'm not sure, but we can check. But sorry, I'm not quite.
The question is, so the current provisions relate to this decision to rescind or affirm relates to triggering a poll at the 2025 election, the 28 term. Is there, if that was not to occur, is there a future provision to seek a poll? Is there a way of in the future? Within the legislation, is there still the ability for a poll to be requested on a future decision regarding Maori ward?
Yes, so that's the nature of the government's amendments, to actually reinstate the poll provision. So it's after the appropriate length of time, yes, the the right either, well, for the council could initiate the decision, but it would always be subject, as it was previously, to a poll, to the demand for a poll.
Thank you. The reason for that question is just to try and alleviate some of that thought process around the removal of a poll of any kind. Thank you.
Okay. Good. What first we'll put is that Councillor Swale's suggestion that go to consultation and come back on the 4th September. It's moved by Councillor Swale, seconded by Councillor Newell.
Yep.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no.
No.
It's not carried. We now move then to before us where we have a mover and Councillor Hayman and a seconder and Councillor Newell, where they have moved proposing that council resolves to rescind the resolution of the 1st of November and then follow through with the rest of our representation committee. So we have a mover and a second to that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
No.
Show of hands. All those in favour
To rescind.
to rescind? Against?
You do that
again. All those in favour, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the motion is that council resolves to rescind the resolution and continue with our
Your worship, can I have those voted
They
for
have-
and against?
yep.
recorded in the minutes?
It will be.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move to item 4, which is the feedback and recommendations on Golden Cottage and Blockhouse. We have a comprehensive, sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship, this, that was the first, that was, division A under that section.
Yep.
There are a number that follow on from that with regards to the next steps resulting from that, decision to rescind. The two options being, relating to council retaining its current, representation arrangements or looking to carry out a shortened review. The recommendation follows proposal that council does proceed with the current arrangements.
Oh, right, okay, so that's what the council comprises of the mayor, 10 councillors to be elected, is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So the item here, a short review of the initial representation must take place.
Or
Well,
Now, Your Worship, under the chart on paragraph 39 shows that following on from the question the precursors. So we did in the recommendation that relates to it proposes that council continue with current representation arrangements. And that recommendation is based on the initial proposal as was developed, being essentially status quo arrangements on the European councillors or the elected at large. So that is that option. If councillors were to prefer to reconsider the representation arrangements as a whole with regards to number of councillors, boards and community boards, if you wanted to review all of that now in light of your decision on the Māori ward, you could continue with a shortened alternative review that needs to be completed by 13th of September. The recommendations, however, is based on where the proposal had landed, being largely the status quo, and that we recommend the continuation of the current arrangements.
so that we retain from the rescinding, we're now retaining existing representation
Yes.
arrangements. That's status quo.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to move that.
I'll second.
Seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Swales.
Just to clarify for me, so it's really the second column of the recommendation that you should suggest that you are also passing B, which is just noting you're meeting certain requirements in order to be able to adopt the existing arrangements. So what you are moving is the right-hand column of the recommendations, A, B, C, A, B, A to E, basically, is. Yeah.
CB.
CB.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, you should move all A to E.
Oh, okay, yes, understand.
And I'm still happy to
Yeah,
second all of
second,
those.
yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Been carried. Sorry, I was a bit slow. Sorry, and councillor Kerry staying. Yeah. Sorry? Oh, and councillor Holden, sorry. And councillor Carson. Okay, we now move to the feedback on the recommendations on the cottage. You have that report for you. A very full and comprehensive report. Is there any comments anyone would like to? Thank you very much, Gavin. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Are there any comments that anyone would like to make, the director or any?
Just through you, it's taken quite a long time. We have engaged extensively with Golden Cottage and Club 41 and the Blockhouse and New Zealand Heritage. And the feeling, which is really well articulated in the report from those, is that setting up a trust to look after those is probably a step too far at the moment. There's a little bit of an unease about that. And the recommendations as per the report are to go a little bit more slowly, work with the Blockhouse, continue to engage as we do with Golders, but look to use the Blockhouse and work with other key stakeholders and seeing how we can develop that further, as alluded to in the report. We might eventually end up with a trust overseeing both, but that's a little bit further on down the track. And happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the director? Councillor Helen?
Your worship, no question, just agreeing totally with the director. And we really, sorry, we really do have to look after our volunteers and the people that put their heart and soul into those places. Down there, they are aging. They are finding it very hard to keep the upkeep of those things. We haven't got any money to throw at it. And so just to support would, I think, and knowing that we're on their side, would probably go to the whole way to just help.
Councillor Bruce?
Through your own. Worship.
No, I'm having to remove recommendation.
It's very good.
We've got lots of things.
Second.
Move, 3 recommendations here. Moved by councillor Griffiths, seconded by councillor Kerry. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Been carried. We now go to item 5. Yeah, we know that Liesl's arrived in town. Confirmation of the council minutes, and we move to the council minutes of the 19th of June. Are there any items to be discussed? Yes.
Item 7.
Item 7. So I'm happy to move all the items barring item 7 and seconded by councillor Hammond. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. Now we come back to item 7.
Your worship, thank you very, very much. Item 7 is on page 90 and it's about the quarterly legislative compliance report that was brought to us at that committee meeting. My issue is that we were addressing a number of bylaws and pieces of bylaws that were actually out of date, and there was a whole list of them that was streamed. And whilst we went through them and the report said we received these, and it did say that on some of them under the Reserves Act that the leasing of building on community groups was being reviewed, and then there was the Hutt Valley Trade one. These are just a couple that I'm pulling up. and it says that the officers are investigating. It didn't give us a timeline, and it didn't give us any assurity of actually what was happening with those bylaws that have been past their due by date. So I would like to know which committee meeting it's going to come back to, where we're going to be told this is going to be revoked or rescinded, this is going to be reviewed. The officers have looked at this and this is their recommendation. But to just leave it pending that people are going to review it or look at it and there is no definitive timeline as to when that's going to happen, I would just like some assurity that it's not going to be part of a sieve that just gets leaked through. I would like to have some sort of closure into what is actually going to happen to those and when are the reports going to come back to us and who would be the lead and what committee will it come back to, please.
Through your worship, the responsibility for reporting back on the status of those documents, according to the conversation, lies with me, and we will be reporting that back as soon as I can. The next risk and audit committee is still a possibility, but bearing in mind that staff are dealing with quite a number of issues at the moment, we will do our utmost to get as fulsome commentary back to as we can by that point.
Thank you. I'm really happy with that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Carter.
I will be a bit slow, but in the minutes that, apart from the one you, Councillor 12 mentioned, the public forum in the last sentence asked Ashley Gibson was requested by a member to put his comments. I'm not quite sure what the ask part of it is, but in fact, that person was me, and I didn't ask for comments. So I asked for Ashley Gibson to provide evidence, facts and evidence to support his allegations. And comments are like allegations. So I don't think that that is accurately reported about what I asked Ashley Gibson to provide to the Risk and Insurance Committee. They're not comments, they're actually something to support the allegations, and therefore it has to be facts with evidence, not just comments.
Well, Councillor will correct that. Thank you. I now move that we adopt the item 7 of the council meeting on the 19th of June. It's seconded by Deputy Ms Wales. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now go to the council meeting on the 27th of June. Are there any items to be discussed? So I'm happy that we confirm the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting on the 27th of June. Happy to move. Have a seconder, Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary's been carried. We now go to the council meeting which was held on the 30th of July. Are there any items to be discussed? Happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kerry. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now move to the committees and we begin the minutes of the City Services Committee, which was held on the 3rd of July. Any items to be discussed? Councillor Wheeler.
Worship. I ask the City Services Committee to continue the report of the meeting held on the 3rd of July as true and great meeting. Councillor.
Thank you. So we have a mover in Councillor Wheeler, seconder and Councillor Ultra. Is there any discussion? And happy to move. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's been carried. And we now move that council adopts the recommendations of the City Service Committee held on the 3rd of July, seconded by Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now move to the policy meeting, which was held on the 17th of July. Thank you, Councillor. 17th of July. Are there any items to be discussed? Councillor Newell.
Your Worship, I ask the Policy Committee to confirm that the record of the meeting held on 17th of July is a true and correct record of the meeting. And do I have a seconder?
Moved by Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. And now I move that council adopts the recommendation of the policy committee that was held on the 17th of July. seconded by councillor Newell. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now go to item 7, which is the document sealed, and you have before you the documents that have been signed. And I move that council receives the schedule of documents sealed and confirm the actions recorded therein and approve the fixing of the common seal to all relevant documents in connection with the decisions. I'll move it. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by councillor Griffiths and now councillor Swales, Deputy Mayor Swales.
I just have a question on it, and it appears, and I know it's operational, but I'd just like to know, it appears that we've warranted a new security firm, is that correct? We've moved away from our previous security people that did noise.
I believe it's the case, but ignorance would be the best place to answer that for you.
Through you, wishes, that is correct. Okay, just wanted a clarification. Thank you, your worship.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. You got that? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's been carried. We now move to public excluded. Have a mover, councillor Wheeler, seconded by councillor Newell.
Your worship, after we've voted on that, can I just have a few minutes to escort my guest out of the
Yeah, absolutely.